Hi everyone, if you're new to the channel, welcome. I typically create videos about NeoVim, Kubernetes and cloud native stuff. If you're a subscriber, thank you and welcome back. This video will be a little different. There's no presentation. It's going to be packed with exercises. It's a kind of a follow-up video to the one I made about substitution and macros. I will link the video in the description and you should see it somewhere above. So if you didn't watch that, watch this first. And the goal here is to really take what we've learned from the video about substitution, regex and so on, and practice it. So it's really kind of good workshop style video. I try to go live with this, but my YouTube streaming foo is pretty weak. I've had some problems. I promise I fix this and do this again. But otherwise, let's start. So let's talk about the setup a little bit. First, you see on the left hand side here in the top, you actually can see the text we are going to transform. This is some of my favorite NeoVim plugins, including the GitHub stars and some spaces. So nothing that crazy. And this is going to be the base for all the exercises. Speaking about exercises, at the bottom here, you can see various exercises. I squeezed 10 of them. They're kind of in a progressive complexity. So the first one is really easy and the last one is relatively complicated. And on the right hand side, this is just a div. The red one shows us our current file and the green one shows us the desired state. So what's the goal of the exercise? So in this case, we start by removing extra spaces. Before we remove spaces, let's learn how to actually see all the spaces. So it's very easy. We're dropping down here to search and we use a space atom, which is backwards / and S, and that shows us all the space and white space. And indeed, you can see we have here are 2 spaces and at the end is a trailing space. So there's various ways to remove it, and I'm going to show you a few of those ways, and this will kind of this will be a foundation for the next exercises. So the one easy way to do this step by step is just to remove first the double spaces. So how we can do this, I'm actually going to jump to a help file I have here to show you a little bit more about it. So this is the first search pattern that we want to do. So I'm going to copy this guy, go back, and as you can see, when I paste it, you can see I'm using the very magic mode, so I don't have to type all the escape characters. And here you can see the pattern found the first space. So now when I replace it with essentially nothing, so I'm closing the forward / and then doing the replace, there's, as you can see, nothing. I can put any characters, but without it, it's just removing it. So why doesn't remove all the other spaces? We have multiple of those, right? So it only removed this first one. And the reason is that I didn't put the G, which stands for global removal, on line. G is a little bit confusing when you do a replacement in NeoVim or Vim. What it essentially says is, by default, if we do not include G, only the first occurrence of search pattern will be removed. If we include G, then all occurrences of search pattern. In our case, we take advantage of this fact and we only remove the first one. That suits us. All right, so we've removed this. That's great. Let's save the file. And you can see here, we kind of improved. So we still have a training space, but other than that, we're almost there. So let's remove the training space. Another way to do it would be to simply use marker for the end of the file. So I'm going to use my little key binding that essentially prints down $s / and very magic mode, which I don't have to type all those characters, which means we are now substituting in the whole file. So I can say, find me a space, again, an atom for a space, but only at the end of the file. So $ is the end of the file. And indeed, it found us a space, the same way like we did earlier, double slashes, but forward slashes would replace it with 0. But let's not save the file just yet. I'm going to show you a few more ways to achieve the same thing. So we need to revert the file to the previous state. And since this is a Git repository, I can take advantage of the Vim fugitive plugin and execute the command gread, which will read the state from the repository and overwrite the file. So let's do this. Gread, and you can see we changed to the previous state. And if we update the file, we are kind of in an old state here. So that was kind of doing this in essentially two ways. We were able to first remove the middle space, which is double space, and then the one at the end. But we can do better. We can do this in one command. So here you can see I'm essentially combining those commands. Let's copy it. Not sure why I can. There you go. So we copied it, and that does what you expect to do. It removes both the double spaces. Here in C, I'm using, for example, curly braces and the number instead of repeating the amount of spaces. So this would give me 2 spaces, and I can do up to 9. Then I'm replacing this with single space, slightly different than in the previous example. And this is like a pipe operator from Linux that you might know. This is just a command continuation operator. So we have one substitution command and another substitution command that follows it. So as you expect, if we do this, we have 2 consecutive substitutions executed, and we are in the correct state. So you see the spaces are right. All right, let's go back to the previous state of the file, and let's execute one more substitution, which does the whole shebang in one go. So this one is a little bit more complicated, but nothing too scary. So let me paste it really quick. So what's happening here? We are essentially taking advantage of so-called capture groups. I talked about all of those concepts in the previous video, so go watch this first. But really quickly, capture groups allow you to carve out part of your search pattern, and then you can refer to this search pattern later by using numbers. You can also use ampersand sign to refer to the whole search. So that's what we did here. We again found those 2 spaces. Then after the 2 spaces, we essentially captured anything. Dot and star means capture any character repeated any number of times, which essentially means capture all. And then the next part of the pattern that we kind of sliced out is the trailing space. So what we do here in substitution, if we go back a little bit, you can see that's our pattern. We found those 2 spaces, whatever it's in between, it happens to be the number and the word stars and the trailing space. And we are only interested in this part. So the number and the stars. That's what we captured here. Then we do replacement. We do space, just to add a space between those 2 components, and then \1, which refers to our pattern. And that gives us the same result as the other one. So that was how we can do this with substitution. I think this one is the most elegant, although it's a little bit of typing. However, with very magic mode, that is not that bad. But we can do the same with macro. So one more time, let's revert. So macros is something I also talked about in the substitution video. You can do essentially the same with a very simple macro, because this is really easy, right? So let's record the macro. I'm going to start recording with the letter Q, and I'm going to choose a register also with the name Q. So you can see at the bottom, we are recording to the Q register. All right, so any key that I type now will be part of my macro. So what we have to do, we need to find the first space, so F, and then space, X to delete it, with a dollar, go to the end, X to delete it again, and 0 to go back. So that's the keystrokes we have to repeat on every line to get the result. Then I can hit Q to stop the macro, and let's see if it works. So I can put add and Q again, and you can see the next line indeed was changed. I can do now selection, and then I have a shortcut for space, capital Q, that executes this on all the lines. So that was the macro, and we can do the macro also slightly differently. We can also use the search in macro. It's quite handy sometimes. So let's record a new macro. I'm going to use gread to get the file to the previous known state. And with the search macro, same idea, Q, and one more time Q to record to the Q register. I can search for the first space, so dropping down / for search, space, enter, because I found my first occurrence, X to delete the character, and the rest is the same, $, X, and 0. So there's two kinds of macros that we can execute. And here you can see this works as the previous macro as well. All right, so that's a buffet of various ways of doing it. We got one more way, which I actually like. It's quite nice. So one more time, let's do gread. And what we can do, we can execute essentially the keystrokes without recording them in the normal mode. So Vim has a quite handy command called norm or normal. And we can do this as follows. Let's drop to command line, %sign for the whole file, so all the lines, norm and exclamation mark. Exclamation mark is important because the keys that we execute will be normal keys, regular Vim keys, so to say. So if you, like me, have a lot of customizations, you might overwrite some of the normal regular key bindings. In my case, F is actually a function. So now I want to execute a traditional F, so to say. All right, so when we do this, so we are executing keystrokes after this command. So we want to do the same. We want to do F, find space, X, go till the end, and then X again, enter. As you can see, the result is exactly the same, but we don't have to record the macro. We essentially kind of create normal keystrokes for all the file. So that were all the ways, probably not all the ways, but a lot of the ways, how we can perform this simple substitution. Now I leave it up to you which way is better. I think the simplest one, the easiest one is the best in this circumstance. Of course, our list here is consecutive, so we are changing every single line. We don't need to skip anything or perform more complicated pattern search or regex search. So I leave it up to you which one you like most. Let me know in the comments below which patterns you like from that what I'm showing. Maybe you have other ideas. I already received a comment from someone earlier showing how we can perform one of the tasks easier than I thought it could be done. So as Vim users, we always strive to course correct for performance and simplicity. All right, one more time, we're going to read the file. So this is it, and let's pick a way of doing it. So I'm just going to be lazy and go here and select maybe this norm. So once we're done, and when we hit save, you can see on the right hand side, we did it. A unicorn tells us that we are legends. The first exercise is done. Awesome, really cool. However, we have to revert the file to work with the next exercise. So let's switch to this screen, and it tells us next one is adding bullets. So the idea here will be simply to prepend a minus in front of every line to make it a bullet list. Something that you will end up doing a lot if you work with Markdown. All right, let's Ctrl+C to next exercise, and we can see that, right, our state looks different. Let's add it real quick. So what we've learned with the first exercise applies here as well. Let's do a simple one. So dropping down to command line here, we want to search from the start of the line, which is represented by a caret symbol, and we want to replace anything that is in the start with minus and space. Look how easy is it. Boom, and we're done. And that's how we can do. Of course, again, we replacing all the elements here. Everything is replaced. If we would have to perform a search, because maybe we want to replace everything that starts with capital letter or something similar, we might need to have a little bit more complicated pattern. But in this case, we did it really simply. One more method I want to show you is to use visual selection block mode. The way to enter this mode is with Ctrl+V. You can see at the bottom here, we have V block. What it essentially does, it allows me to select a consecutive block of text. So in practice, when I hit G, you can see that the line dropped here at the bottom, and I am highlighting kind of a little block, hence the name block selection. Okay, so what I can do with this, since I already selected kind of the beginning of the line, I can do capital I to drop at the front of the line, and here simply put minus and space. And that's changed it on a single line. However, because it was block selection, if you hit escape, voila, we changed all the lines. Another quite simple way of doing it. You can very easily create a simple key binding or macro that would encapsulate it if you happen to make a lot of lists. But even this is really, really simple. Okay, let's give it a go and save it. Another one out of the park. We did it. Add bullets completed. Let's move to a little bit more complicated element. And I'm not sure if I saved this exercise correctly. Let me actually see. I don't think so. Swap user. Oh, swap user is empty. So we have to do a little bit of operation on open heart here, but it's gonna be fine. So again, gread to come back. So although it's not showing us what we need to do, the idea here is that we need to swap the username and the repository, swap its places essentially. So here, Alex will be on the second spot after the slash. So here we are going to take advantage again of the capture groups. So let's drop down to the line. So first, what we want to capture essentially any word. So this is the word character up to a /. But we don't want to include the / in it. So that's how our capture would look like. So let me just do this like that. So if you do this, we've captured a word that essentially is up to a /. So if now I want to replace it, when I hit 1, you can see that we are essentially replacing it with itself. So this is the word. So we've captured the first group. Another group that we want to capture is going to be a next word up to a space. So again, we open bracket for capturing, and we can say this and maybe W, because we have this little dot here. So we want to capture all the characters, not only word characters. And then plus, and let's see what it gives us. This is not working for us. Okay, so we need another approach. So we can use another atom, which is called capital S. This atom captures everything that isn't a white space. So that's what worked. Okay, great. Now we can substitute it. So what we want to first do, we want to first do the 2, which is the name of the repository. Then we do slash, and then we do 1. And then we have to escape the slash here. So as you can see, the result is that we essentially flipped the author of the plugin repository name. So atoms are very important. You can read all about them in the new Vim documentation under the patterns topic. And you can see the small w was searching for words. Capital S is everything excluding a white space. And this way we were able to use capture groups. And this is, by the way, something I'm constantly using. This swapping of words is something that I do a lot. So let's do the change, and we can actually copy it and paste it to the expected result. I'm not sure if our macro here will actually catch it, but let's give it a try. So we are going to move and then see. All right, that definitely caught it here. And if we save the file, swap user, we did it. Third exercise with a little bit of a hiccup. Done. Awesome. One more that we want to do is convert to markdown style links. This specifically is something I actually had to do because I wanted to paste this into a Reddit post description, and I already had this list. And then I thought, hey, why don't I use regex to add GitHub URL addresses for every plugin? So let's give it a go. As usual, we read to reach to this level, and then we start an exercise. And you can see here, I'm going to maximize this a little bit. The end goal is really to have square bracket here, and then normal bracket and HTTPS GitHub. Very, very easy and quite useful as well. So let's do this. We can kind of do this with a pattern like the previous one, or we can also do this with a macro. And I want to show you something special with macro here, although it's a little bit finicky. But let's give it a try. So first we are going to do the macro. I'm always getting nervous with macros because one keystroke wrong and then you have to repeat it. So I find them to be a little bit brittle. That's why I prefer typically a substitution. But they definitely work and have their uses as well. So let's start. As usual, we're recording to the Q registry, and we need to have here first a square bracket. So I, then open square bracket, escape, capital E to go till the end, A to drop into the insert mode after the line. Then let's close square bracket here, open this guy, and let's do HTTPS and then do github.com. Then we have to essentially escape because we need to copy the previous text. I want to go back here with 0, do one letter towards the right and use Y, I, and then square bracket to copy everything within the square bracket. And then what I want to do is, since this is all consecutive string, I want to do again Shift E to go to the very end where we were here. I can do A again, slash, because we need this, escape, and P for paste. Finally, one more A, close this guy, escape, and 0. Whew, that was a lot. So we did the whole macro in one go, and you could see that I had to focus a lot and kind of think of what we are doing. But let's see if it works first of all. So again, this QQ. Oh, I stopped recording it, didn't stop recording it, and now I messed it up. Let's stop recording it and see if it works. Yeah, I didn't actually mess up. So I went one line down, and this made the macro kind of recursive because now it went through everything. So accidentally, I made it a little bit better. But we recorded the macro. It's all great, and it worked. Obviously, if we would save the file, you could see that this is exactly as expected here. But the macro recording process was like, I had to stop a few times and think like, what am I doing? And I wasn't sure if I had the right keystrokes. So let me show you how you can split this process. So let's again read the file, and we can record macro in chunks essentially. So we will do this right now. So let's start recording like we did earlier. So Q and Q. All right, we got this guy. Let's do something simple at the beginning. So we are opening this, open square bracket, escape, capital E, A, and close, and escape. And then we can stop recording. So you can see I hit Q one more time, and we stopped recording. One important thing is I didn't go back to the beginning. I kind of stayed on this line. So let's go to the other line. You have to go to beginning and execute the macro. So as you expect, it kind of wraps the repository and the user in brackets. One more time. Okay, that works. But we kind of only have just a half of it, not even half of our macro. So what we can do, we can append to an existing macro. So let's first execute the first part. So this guy. We can hit Q again, and now instead of small letter Q, we can use capital letter Q. You can see at the bottom, we are recording into capital Q register. What it does, it appends the macro to the existing one. Okay, now we have a little bit more confidence that the previous part works. So since we are here at this bracket, I'm actually want to go back, go one right with L and then YI and copy everything. Then go here. So I'm using F now to go to the square bracket here, do A and maybe open bracket and stop recording. So again, similar idea, and you can see when I execute it now, it actually executes this with the new macro. So you can progressively kind of build your macro if it's a little bit more complicated. Again, I find it a bit finicky and it takes some time to do it. Typically my default idea would be to use a replace pattern. So let's do just that. However, in this specific case, I think macro is actually a little bit better, and you will see why in a second. So let's start with substitution. So we want to capture, as you probably already are familiar with, we want to capture the first guy. So let's do this in an easy way, capital S plus, and we've captured. And that's all we need to capture. We just need this one, and we will manipulate this text. So let's replace it with square bracket, 1, close, that's great, HTTPS. And now you can see that that doesn't work because we need to escape those. So that's why I said macros is a little easier, because now I have to escape this one, and now I'm actually producing a 2 forward slashes. Okay, now one more time, the same capture group that we have, and we get to escape one more time to produce a forward slash, and we forgot here github.com. GitHub, so let's do github.com and like this. That was quite, so this one we need to escape. As you can see, it can be a little bit finicky here with all the escapes of slashes and backslashes. Again, for this specific use case, I would probably prefer to use macro, specifically because of all the escapes. But those two ways would work, and let's see if this indeed worked for us. No, it didn't, because we have a dot where we should have a slash. So, rather, we have a forward slash where we should have a dot. So this will be really easy. So we can, for example, replace up, which will be only the GitHub. Oh, no, there's also a different word. So let's do GitHub, and then capturing this. And instead of this, we're just going to do GitHub and then dot. So we do this. Not sure why this doesn't work. So we are capturing here the word GitHub and with the forward slash, and we want to replace it with, okay, the replace was missing, GitHub with the dot, and that should do it. So once we save this, we should be happy, and indeed, fourth task done. All right, let's move to something slightly different. So far, we've been using mostly substitution and macros, but we can also use external commands, which is really useful in some cases. So another exercise asks us to sort the number of stars descending. So you can see this number of stars is kind of random sort here, and we want to sort it descending. So VIP selects the whole paragraph. I'm dropping to the command line, exclamation mark sort, calls the external sort command. I could also use internal sort command, but I want to show you that you can also use an external one. So how sort works, a quick reminder. First, I have to select which column do I target, and this is actually key, not column, so -K. And we have 3, so I want to select the second one. So I'm targeting now the second column here, and it's all by default separated by spaces. And then this is going to be numerical sort. We need to make sure we sort numerically, not just by alphabet. And when I do this, we are kind of halfway there. We sorted it, but it's sorted in ascending order, and we want the highest number of stars at the top. So let's drop down again, Control P to go back to the previous one, and we need to add R, which is reverse. And of course, we need to know the sort command, but that's not that hard, and then we can do it. Once we save it, that's done. sorting is done. And you can do other commands. Once you discover that you can execute awk scripts on a block of text, well, the world is your oyster, because almost anything is possible with it. All right, let's do period again. And then we're gonna move to the next exercise, which is markdown table. Very similarly, we can do this with a macro, we can do this with substitution. I prefer substitutions in general. So markdown table, I find this task very often also if you work with markdown and if you want to encapsulate something within the table. Of course, you know, there are programs that help you with it, but you can do this with substitution really quickly. So let's give it a go. So again, we want to here essentially, we can do this in a few ways. We can substitute all the spaces with the bar. So let's do this. If we find the space and we want to substitute it with the bar sign like that, that would work, although it would give us, so like that. We want to also have substituted. I'm a little lost in the substitution here. So this is the first space we're finding. All the spaces we're finding, we are substituting it first with this. And we would have to do a little bit more because we'd have to also find the beginning. So let's go to my original idea. How can we do this? Capture groups. You know it for now. Capital S plus, we capture this guy. Now we want to do this double spaces, which we don't capture. We just continue to find our pattern. Now another group, we can use the D atom, which captures any number. So we capture the number, this guy here, and we captured also the word stars. We don't really have to capture it. We can just type it, but let's just capture it. So I can do any word and plus, and this captures the word stars. It also has the added benefit that we don't capture the space at the very end. So now we have all the captured groups we need, and let's see if we can execute the substitution. So we start with a pipe sign for a table, then 1, another pipe sign, 2, pipe sign 3, and we finish it with this, and that's it. So you can see a real markdown table. We omitted all the spaces, and we have markdown table. You have to, of course, add your header, but otherwise we did it. All right. So that should be do it. Oh, that's not really, because we still have the trailing space here. So let's remove the trailing space. Remember, really easily, we do this, and that's trailing space gone. Markdown table done. And again, as with every task, if you see an easier way, meaning in the least amount of keystrokes, or the smallest substitution command, I would be really interested to know what is your take on the specific task. So we did the markdown table. Let's now do JSON. So very often we need to transform something into JSON. So let's go back and do grid. And here you probably already know how we can do this. We can record a macro. We can do substitution. We've done this already multiple times, and the concept is kind of the same. So that also means that it works, right? Because those things, like, you can reuse the existing knowledge. And I find that capture groups are really in forefront of the usability tricks that you can have with it. So let's have some capture groups. Capital S, bam, we captured the first guy. This is our first capture group. Another one would be the number of stars. So like we did last time, tag S. Another capture group, open bracket D, plus for anything. And then another capture group with S, hop, W, plus. Oh, I actually accidentally hit something which I shouldn't. Okay. Plus, and all right. We got all the capture groups that we need. And now let's do the transformation. So first we need to start by doing this, doing repository, close, and then we do the first capture group, which is 1, we close, comma, then we do actually the third capture group, which is the word stars. We could also type the word. Looks like the video stopped recording for whatever reason. Apologies for that. So the previous chapter was cut a little bit, but I think you understood. We were almost at the end of creating the pattern, which would create the stars. Now we are moving on to the next exercise, which is number 8. And we want to delete the stars, which are, actually we're going to delete the ones that are more than 1,000. No, actually, we delete the stars. So delete the stars that are less than 1,000. So how can we do this? We can take advantage of a different functionality called global command. This command comes with two shapes. One is G and one is V. Global command in general is used to execute a command on a pattern. So instead, like with substitution, where you substitute the found pattern with something else, with a global command, we actually search for a pattern and execute a command on the line with this pattern. As I mentioned, there are two flavors. One is G, which just searches and finds the pattern and executes the command. Another one is V, which reverses or negates the search. Okay, so first of all, let's see if we can find all the lines that has more than 1,000 stars. So let's give it a go. As always, we do this double capital S, we're dropping here, and no, that's not as always, I'm sorry. We have to go to the global command. So we do this like that, G, like this, go to very magic mode, and then let's see D for all the numbers, and plus here. And we want to find all the numbers that are more than 1,000. So being more than 1,000 means to have 4 or more letters or numbers in this case. So we can do this like that, 4, comma, and that would give us the amount of numbers here that is 4 or more. And when I hit enter, you see that it found all of them. You can actually make a copy of this and maybe just go here and then add a few more lines to show you that this will find all the numbers 4 or more. So in this case, we're going to have this effect. All right, so we can kind of use this atom of counting to our advantage to see, okay, 4 or, you know, any other number in this case. But this is not what we want, right? We want to have the number of stars, and we want to actually delete them. So only leave the ones that are more than 1,000. So we can do the same as we did earlier, so 4 or more, but instead of G, we are using V, which reverses it. And now it found it and reversed, and by reversing, it deleted the lines that are less than. I hope it's not too confusing, but that's what it is. So let me do this one more time and make sure that we are in this healthy state here. We do G, we do again V, then we do this. So we found it, and then we just execute a command on each line that is not less than 1,000 and delete it. And voila, we have all the stars here that are more than 1,000. So when we save it, that works. We did it. Stars is done. Okay, let's move to a little bit more advanced exercises. So the last two are something that you can use. I use it regularly, but you have to have good use cases for it. And it's easy to overdo it, similar like with awk. Once you learn awk, you can do anything with it. But sometimes it's not the best tool. You might want to actually use maybe static programming language or make it a little bit more robust. Equally here, we are going to use expressions and functions. So let me do greet one more time. So now it asks us to reverse the order of characters in the number of stars. So instead of having 286, we will have 682, and so on and so forth. So we are going to use substitution. So let's find the stars quickly. So we do our group. You know it already very well. We're capturing the number. And now, instead of changing it and making a text out of it, we are going to take advantage of the expression. And in order to enter the expression evaluation mode, we have to do this escape equals. And anything that we type from here will be an actual function. So how can we reverse something? Well, Vim has a reverse function. So reverse, and then we just put submatch, which is essentially referring to our capture group. And that's it. As you can see now, all the numbers were reversed. Very, very easy once you know that you can use the functions. So let's save it. We have one more exercise left, which is even a little bit more complicated. And again, a word of advice, if you find yourself using this type of substitutions a lot, then maybe it's a good moment to write a function for it. But I find them still okay. So what we want to do in this one is we want to capitalize words that are longer than 10 characters. And please forgive me, but I'm gonna go through my little cheat sheet here and copy this command. So you don't need to see me type it. So what we did here, we are, as always, capturing here the word. Again, we did this like with word. We could remember we could do this with capital S. Just go back here. That would have the same effect, but we just captured the word here. And in the replacement part, we are using again the expression, and we are saying match what we've captured, which is the first part, the user and the repository name. And if this, what we've captured, the length of the string is more than 10, make it to upper. Make any string in this expression to upper. And if it's not, just output the whole search pattern. And that's how we achieve this ternary operator style logic. You might know ternary operator from Python or C# or other languages. Again, it's concise enough that it still fits in one line, but you can easily see how it can kind of blow out of proportions, and you spend a lot of time tweaking it. But for those simple use cases where you need one conditional to essentially drive your replacement logic, why not? It's going to be all right. So we did it. Let's get rid of highlighting, save, and that doesn't work. Oh, because we still have the reverted number of stars. So actually, let's run the revert number of stars one more time, which is going to revert number of stars like that, which would give us the old stars, and that takes us through the edge, and we did it. Last exercise, everything is completed. Let me move here, and yay, we are done. So as you can see, we exercised various ways of transforming text in Vim or NeoVim. Nothing I showed here is NeoVim specific. This should work both equally well in both editors. It's a little bit of a learning curve, obviously, but once you pick up the main concepts, for me, those are capture groups. You've seen we've used them all the time. Capture groups, various atoms like \S to capture anything other than white space, \D for digits, all those things. They are quite useful to remember. Another thing that I would like to highlight is using incremental macros. So you can kind of start slow, and if you're not sure that your macro works, you can keep adding by appending to the capital letter register that you've recorded previously, and will expand and append. That's definitely interesting and good to remember. And otherwise, read help files and documentation. Helpful documentation is about patterns. and built-ins, and you can kind of see, search for everything and familiarize yourself with it. And this would make your editing skills way better. As I mentioned earlier, I would really love to hear or to read in comments if you have an easier way of doing any of those that I showed, or maybe you've learned something that you didn't know. Just let me know what do you think, and I'll try to create a similar workshop style video for other things we've covered earlier. All right, thank you again for sticking till the end, and see you in the next video.